I grew up with the Sonic series as it was my first video game series I actually invested time into. Sure, the GBA port of Super Mario World was my first video game, but Sonic was the first franchise I actually grew to like. Despite the series' reputation on the internet, it's true that there are great games of the franchise, which may be surprising for some of you. Sonic the Hedgehog has had high highs and low lows, but today I will be counting down my top 10 Sonic games. Here are the rules. There are none. Well, just the fact that I need to take off my nostalgia goggles. I mean, I always do, but here the goggles tend to be tempting to put on. Also, I want to say that no game is perfect, and I will be pointing out the flaws in each entry. Now that I've made myself look like an anti-hater and an anti-fan, let's move on. I will be assessing the games based on their story, presentation, gameplay, as well as other things I find important to talk about. For you careful listeners, please note that this countdown will be more biased than the other ones. While my strive for objectivity in all my work on YouTube still remains here, I will allow more personal taste here than in my other countdowns due to the subject matter. Alright, let's count them down. I may get some flack for this, despite everything I said in the introduction, but oh well, it's the internet. Sonic Generations is a fine 20th anniversary game, and overall, one of the most solid and consistent entries in the franchise. Before I get into why Generations is so low, let's look at the story. Tails, Knuckles, and most of Sonic's other friends throw a surprise birthday party for Sonic. Shortly after Sonic arrives, the whole gang gets sucked into a portal summoned by a beast who can master time, known as Time Eater. Sonic wakes up in a white void, and he saves his friends and brings life back to the world by revisiting places of the past, and I think Eggman was there. Well, that was actually the whole story. This, along with something I'll talk about later, ranks as one of the most disappointing aspects about Sonic Generations. Now, the presentation in Generations is spot on with what you want in a Sonic game. The game looks amazing, and the frame rate in the modern sections is not as bad as Unleashed's. Not nearly. We're not going under 15 here. But best of yet is the soundtrack. Not only are the classic and modern remixes pleasure to your ears, you can unlock more remixes not associated to any playable levels, and select any song to be played during a level or boss fight. More games need to do this. So Sonic Generations is split into two gameplay styles. You have classic Sonic, who plays similar to the Genesis games, but now has a broken spin dash and much better looking 2.5D levels. I prefer the other gameplay style more than classic, but it's really only because of personal taste. No matter what though, classic Sonic plays and feels great. Modern Sonic is the other gameplay style, and he basically controls like a looser Unleashed Sonic. All of the controls are the same, but he doesn't feel nearly as stiff as in Unleashed, and thank God for that! I feel like Sonic Team got more creative with Modern's levels versus Classic's levels, but that could just be due to the nature of 3D. There are only 9 locations represented in the game, each with a level for both Classic and Modern Sonic. This puts the game at only 18 levels, but there are many missions to complete. Some of these missions are fun, some of them are very creative, and some of these flat out suck. The level design is not one-to-one with the original levels, and the new paths and views are the best part in my eyes. So overall, Generations is very solid, but it lacks any story basically other than having a few excuses for a game like this to be canon. And the amount of content is lacking in the main content department. It seems like a lot of big Sonic YouTubers feel that there should have been DLC for more levels, and I 100% agree with that. Well, it may be disappointing somewhat, but Sonic Generations is a very fun game, very solid game, and a fun time. Probably one of the most underrated Sonic games, in my eyes at least, is Sonic Advance 3 for the Game Boy Advance. I'm a big fan of the Advance trilogy, and I never understood why Advance 3 gets hate. The most common complaint is the level design, but I dare say it's the best aspect of the game, along with its unique mechanic we'll get to later. Advance 1 was good, but Advance 2 sucked. I'm sorry if you like Advance 2, but I can't stand running off cliffs and into things I can't see. Sonic Advance 3 plays like a hybrid between the two, focusing on both Advance 1's platforming and the speed-focused Advance 2. Usually Sonic gets most criticized when the two try to blend together, like Lost World, but I loved it here. These levels, such as Route 99 and especially Ocean Base, have a lot of depth, and
1,000,000
shortcuts. I'm determined to believe that this game has more shortcuts and paths than any other Sonic game. Advance 3 is pretty difficult, but it's never too cheap. In addition to having good level design, the story isn't half bad for how simple it is, and that it's on a GBA console. Eggman wants all of the Chaos Emeralds so that he can power his new robot. The robot is Gemerald. Gemerald's pretty cool and has a cool design, so props for that, but all in all, he's really easy in the beginning of every boss fight, which I get is kind of part of the point, but the presentation in Advance 3 is great as well. These are some of the best looking sprites and graphics on the handheld, and it holds up today. The music is decent, but it's not very memorable, plus the quality of the sound is eh. I've talked about the gameplay a bit, but let me just say that it plays like Advance 2 with a few more bells and whistles. The unique mechanic is the partner system. I was hinting at this before. I love this idea so much. Basically, you can pick any main character and pick your partner and start a level. The partner will change certain moves of the controlled character and offer unique ways of beating levels. Paths are unreachable without certain combinations. Most are optional, unless you're going for all the Chaos Emeralds. And well, I hate to say it, but the Emerald Hunt sucks from start to finish, just like in Advance 1 and Advance 2. Well, I think Sonic Advance 3 is a stellar game. Sonic Riders is another game I think gets too much hate. Though the game does have its issues, and they do count. The sequel Sonic Riders Zero Gravity holds as one of my favorite racing games, and as it has my favorite single-player mode in any racing game. This spin-off is so good it even beats Generations for me. Where to begin? Well, I guess the presentation. The CG cutscenes look incredible, and the game cutscenes from the in-game models are an improvement from Riders 1. The graphics are some of the best on the Wii, and some of the special effects really stick out in my mind, with just how good looking they are. Now the other half of the presentation category is the soundtrack. Wow. Atmospheric when it wants to be, loud when it wants to be, classy when it wants to be, pure techno. The list and diversity is great, but one thing remains consistent. It's actually pretty memorable. I honestly think composition-wise, this is some pretty impressive stuff for a video game. Don't let me make you think it's God tier, because that's not what I'm saying. It's just well done and enjoyable. I think people who don't like the game will at least appreciate the story. Here's how it goes. One night a ring fell from the sky that awakens the mother computer of who knows what, and hundreds of robots as well. More rings are said to be on the planet, known as artifacts, and they come from the Babylon. Nice continuity, I guess? Anywho, Sonic and his gang tried to beat Jet and his pals to getting all of the rings while continuing to race each other in their ongoing rivalry. It's written really well as it goes, and each character has their own chance to shine. The events also make for good excuses to race and to go somewhere. Like when Storm has to get 2 artifacts from Amy, he goes to Tempest Waterway in order to find her. There's no one to race, he just has to steal them from her. It's well done. Now the gameplay is similar to Riders, but the trick system has been completely removed for a skill system based on the timing of your jump on a ramp. This is a dumb omission for sure, but it's not that disappointing. However, with every character having an artifact, they can all use the rings to go into zero gravity, and either fly until the gauge runs out, or change planes going onto walls and such. This allowed the developers to pack in more paths and well-structured tracks. The zero gravity mechanic has a bit of a learning curve, but you'll be turning and shifting in no time. I should mention that there's a multiplayer mode, and it's well done but not too interesting. Overall, Sonic Riders Zero Gravity is a greatly unappreciated gem. Sonic the Hedgehog has been thrown into many different game styles that just don't make any sense. While the storybook series and some of the spin-offs are terrible, Sonic Battle delivered a great fighting experience and a great story experience for what was possible in the GBA. The story is that Emerald, a robot created by Dr. Eggman, crashes onto the beach and Sonic and Rouge discover it. Sonic and Co. teaches Emerald how to fight, and Emerald goes from the crappiest fighter to the best fighter throughout the course of the game. Yeah, okay, look, I may review this game one day, and if I do, then I promise to go in depth with the plot. But this is one scenario where I have to save some time. Almost every playable character has a story, and they're all different in length. If this sounds familiar, it's because Sonic Adventure 1 was structured the same way, and I definitely like it here, as well as in Sonic Adventure. Despite just having still sprites and text boxes for story scenes, it's very well done, though not much happens in the beginning as it is a bit of a slow opening. Examples of this is in Shadow and Knuckles' story, where they actually elaborate on important personality traits and origin traits, while others like Amy's stories are all for character development. If I could pick only one good thing from this game, it would actually be the story. This is the #1 game in the series for learning about the characters. They all reach full potential here, and yes, it's canon. Now the soundtrack. It's a sad state of affairs. No, I'm just kidding. The GBA has a very lackluster set of sound tools, but the OST is pretty decent. I found some of the more somber and smooth pieces to have better sounding quality than the high intensity filled ones. Overall, it's pretty decent. Sonic Battles gameplay is usually where controversy begins, and I admit there are problems here. For one, the AI can be cheap later on in the game, but it's still manageable. Every character plays uniquely and all share the same buttons. You have a punching combo, 2 specials that change depending on if you are on the air or grounded when activating the move, a shield, a jump button, and healing. That's literally it. The GBA obviously doesn't have enough buttons to make for a really involved fighting game, but here Sonic Battles work around. After every death you take, you have a mini menu that will appear, which will ask you to customize your specials, allowing for more moves. This isn't a permanent nor a perfect solution, but it adds more depth to learning the characters. I think everyone is balanced as well, but maybe just the exception of Shadow being a little too good. Let me not forget to say that there is a multiplayer mode supporting the link cable, and while I have no experience with the multiplayer, I heard it works well. Sonic Battle is overall a good game that needs a sequel. It also debatably has the best story in any Sonic game. The opinions of gamers about Sonic games has changed a lot throughout history, but one of the most divided is Sonic Heroes. By the fact that it's obvious that I like this game, based on its slot, you know that I enjoy it. Sonic Heroes combines some of the ideas from the adventure games and runs with them to go do something different. There's only one gameplay style with 4 variations. Each team has its small differences, but let's first look at the stories. Team Sonic tries to stop Eggman as usual, Team Dark tries to find out why Shadow was locked away in captivity, and other details are revealed on that throughout the game. Team Rose is basically on a fetch quest for Chocola, Chow, Froggy, and Sonic. And lastly, Team Chaotix is on a mission to make Dem Cash. The stories are short and straight to the point. While being nothing grand, they serve the game well. Sonic Heroes is more kiddie than a lot of Sonic games, and that's not bad per se, but few issues arise from this approach. Mainly the voice acting and writing can be overly cheesy, and sometimes hard to deal with. Other than that, I don't have a problem with these themes being more kid-friendly. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Sonic the Hedgehog isn't for all ages, I just find this game, like others, to be more child-friendly than other games in the series. The soundtrack in Heroes is really, really good. Every track is memorable, and the variety and style is tastefully done. I don't have favorites for Heroes soundtrack, but I especially love Grand Metropolis and Hang Castle. They also happen to be my favorite levels in the game, which makes for a perfect segue! Now for the level design and gameplay. The level design has a great emphasis on platforming and incorporates several paths in order to give all of the team formations a time to shine. You have the speed formation, which is the fastest and most versatile. Then you have the flight formation, which is great for careful platforming and for ranged attacking. Last is the power formation, with combat and fans being its specialty. Only people who played the game would understand that. The teams have slightly different attacks, which is a nice mix-up from a repeated level design. See, the levels are fun and well designed, but change only very slightly depending on the team, and it's a real shame too, because in order to play the final story, you must beat all 4 stories, which can be extremely repetitive. Sonic Heroes is a game that must be completed in small spurts, but even then the problem ensues. This is the biggest criticism I have against Heroes. Sonic Heroes is a satisfying experience and well crafted for all of its intricacies that is enjoyed by many. Here comes the hate! Sonic Adventure 2. I'm not going to bash it either, just hear me out. Sonic Adventure 2 is a game I'm personally very split on. For everything it does well, I find an issue with in some way, and it's hard to justify my reasoning when I can't really explain my thoughts. Well, I better dive right in before someone dislikes the video. The story overall has great ideas and has a well-toned feeling throughout, but the story is dumbed down by too many unexplained actions, poor balancing between gameplay and story, and just plot holes galore. Well, starting off chronologically, Dr. Eggman infiltrates a GUN base, or gun, to steal the ultimate life form. Upon doing so, Shadow the Hedgehog, the ultimate life form, makes a deal with Dr. Eggman. The two tried to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds in order to fire the Eclipse Cannon and destroy the Earth. Along the way, Rouge the Bat, a gun spy, hangs around the two and even gets involved in some of Eggman's plans. On the other side of the story, Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles each have their own little shoes to fill and reasons for exploring, but overall, all want to end Eggman's plan. I do really like how SA2 has branching stories that still connect to the core plot. For example, Amy goes on a mission to rescue Sonic from the prison, and Knuckles looks for the Master Emerald pieces even after joining Sonic's squad. Gives the story some depth, but not a whole lot is explained and is rather just left out. You could say that Sonic Team wasn't going as ambitious as I imagined, but that's no excuse with some of my issues with the story. Later on, after the Eclipse Cannon backfires on Eggman's second shot, the story takes a very dark turn leading up to a sad ending. Despite how old these games are, I will not spoil the end of the stories, as I'm sure you've already seen in my glance over other such details. So I find SA2's story to be enjoyable, but not well put together. The soundtrack is once again glorious like most Sonic games, but there is little too much emphasis on heavy metal and guitar in general. I know it seems like I'm breaking this game, but honestly I'm just being fair. Sonic Adventure 2 has high highs, but also has more problems than a lot of Sonic games. If I could just talk about the graphics for a bit, I think they're a nice improvement from SA1's. Okay, moving on. The gameplay is divided into three styles, with those being Speed, Shooter, and Exploration. Sonic, Gamma, and Knuckles are represented styles from SA1 in this game, so you can tell that the other two characters fill in the role. I don't have a problem with this or the fact that Tails is in a walker and not on foot for the whole game. Each control well, even the walkers, and I find each style fun, and not just Sonic and Shadow's levels, as some people like to say. The treasure hunting stages can suck sometimes, and the radar system is nearly broken now, but at least Knuckles and Rouge control well, and if you get used to the level design, then you won't be overstaying your welcome too much. I won't go too deep into the gameplay styles, as the SA1 represented styles brought back in this game will be mentioned more in the SA1 entry later on. Spoiler alert, I guess. All in all, Sonic Adventure 2 has great gameplay, replay value, and some great ideas for a story, all thrown into one game. Sonic Colors is a very well executed game. Continuing off of Unleashed's boost gameplay, Sonic Team really hit this one out of the park. Out of Eggman's Interstellar amusement park, in fact. The story in Sonic Colors goes like this. Eggman announces that he has made an amusement park in space as an apology to the world for his past transgressions, but because it's obviously another plan to take over the world itself, this time mind control being the main source, Sonic and Tails head to the park to stop Dr. Eggman. That's the whole plot, and there really aren't any surprises along the way. The cutscenes go for a more cartoonish style, with character interactions being put in the forefront of the story. This works well enough, even though the writing can feel too cheesy at times, like cringeworthy type of cheesy. I must say though, for being a game marketed towards kids more than anyone, Sonic Colors does a great job not having, Sonic Heroes type of dialogue. It's not that bad. The soundtrack is in my opinion one of the best in the series. I'm not a big techno guy, but I do like these catchy tunes. I do, however, like good synthesizers, and Sonic Colors uses them a lot. Even a few orchestral tracks appear every now and then, and they are truly wonderful. The gameplay is more centered around 2D than 3D, which I'm not sure was a focus. Sonic now has a double jump and a boost that is no longer as emphasized as it was in the last game. Other than those details, Sonic has all of the same moves, but he controls much looser than Unleashed. Generations would then further perfect this example of Sonic's gameplay, but Colors took a few steps to making Sonic better controlled. New are the Wisps, which are kind of like temporary power-ups. They're never annoying and they control just fine. I actually really love the Whips, and I do think they add to the game and not subtract from the experience. Sonic Colors is divided into 6 main worlds, each with 6 acts. It sounds like a lot, but they are very short with the exception of the first act. My biggest issue with Colors is its length, actually. And I know the argument for a short Sonic game. Trust me, I've heard it many times. I still think that Sonic Team can make a non-repetitive Sonic game that lasts longer, and without any drastic gameplay styles. But for what it's worth, we did get a highly replayable solid game. Sonic Colors takes the number 4th slot. Sonic Lost World is an excellently crafted platformer, and I love it. Everything was done with care. Sonic Lost World gets crap from everyone, but too bad because I think it's great, so I'm going to place it here at number 3. The story, however, is a weak way to start this entry. Sonic and Tails find the Lost Hex, never heard of that, after battling with Eggman and the Deadly Six show up, and Eggman tries to take life out of the physics. In all seriousness, the cutscenes and, they are phenomenal, and the writing is great, but the plot does not really exist. It's still somewhat more present than Colors. Lost World's soundtrack is something so good it can't be described. One of the best I've heard, period. The range and composition is stellar. I think gamers sometimes lack the knowledge that soundtracks to games can still be objectively analyzed, just that it's for the most part a personal taste evaluation. The composition of Lost World's pieces are really well done, and I do have a lot of background in music, so you can take my word for it. I'm just throwing that out there, that's all. A lot of people say that the soundtrack sounds like a Mario game, and all I have to say is, what the hell are you talking about? I don't see the comparisons. Now onto the gameplay. Sonic Lost World features a run and a spin dash button. I don't see the need for a run button, as in like Mario, because you are 95% of the time holding it down anyway. A kick attack in addition to a roll, 3 ways to use the spin dash, a stomp attack, and reticle stacking homing attacks, and the new parkour system. There's a lot of depth here. The parkour system has different variants as well. You can hop over small things in your way and double tap to keep your momentum. But you can also run along walls both vertically and horizontally. The parkour system is hard to adjust to right away, but it's mostly optional, which I find an interesting choice. I'm not sure what I mean by that. I don't know if it's particularly good or bad, I just find that decision interesting. Well anyway, the level design is varied and has many pathways. Like, this game is complex. So many different control options and so much variety. I have to wrap this up without making 5 lists with 12 commas in them describing the rest of the game. Sonic Lost World is solid as hell. I don't really know how to introduce Sonic Adventure. Today it's been bashed and over-critiqued to the point where I don't even feel comfortable talking about it anymore. It's hard enough being a YouTuber and dealing with this constantly, but, well, I guess I'm asking for it just by the fact that I'm making this countdown. Well, Sonic Adventure hasn't aged well like its sequel, but it accomplished a lot back in the day and, more importantly, still holds up in some aspects today. The plot is one of my favorites in the series. One night on Angel Island, Knuckles protects the Master Emerald, but failed to notice a massive egg-branded ship flying towards him. Problem arises, of course. Eggman uses Chaos and the Emeralds to dominate the world. Sonic tries to stop him while Tails follows along, learning to become an independent person. Knuckles searches for the broken Master Emerald shards. Amy tries to reunite a Burn family while outrunning a chasing robot. Big is big, and Gamma targets all of his brethren for the greater good. The plot has a great balance of darkness and quirkiness. I like each scenario and they all tie into the final story quite nicely, except for Big. The soundtrack is regarded as one of the best in the series, and I'm a supporter of that. While it's not my favorite, I definitely enjoy it. The gameplay is divided into 6 styles that all play similarly. Sonic runs fast and gets to the goal. Tails does the same but has to race and beat Sonic to the goal. Knuckles has treasure hunting stages, Amy has to reach a balloon while running away from Zero, Big fishes for stuff, and Gamma must kill the target robot before time's run out on the stage. I quote, every gameplay style I find enjoyable. Okay, I like 5, 6 I enjoy. Amy, Knuckles, Gamma I like just as much as Sonic and Tails, which I know is controversial. Big the Cat is the stinker, of course. SA1 also has neat hub worlds that are small and easy to navigate, so it only adds to the atmosphere. Sonic Adventure is a game I don't enjoy in small doses. I like it for the whole package. Well, most of it. This will shock you all. My number 1 is Sonic Unleashed. How dare I! Let's just take a dive in Aquatic Mine and get on with this entry. No fluff. Sonic Unleashed has the best story in the franchise, in my opinion, the perfect balance between humor and seriousness. The story is enjoyable from beginning to end. The soundtrack is the best video game soundtrack of all time, in my opinion, up there with Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright. The presentation cannot be ignored, as Unleashed has a massive budget, which is very visible to the eye. Not only is the production of high production values, but the gameplay is very well crafted. Sonic in the daytime controls very swiftly and... okay, let's slow down. Sonic in the daytime controls very swiftly and awkwardly in the hub worlds, but it isn't too bad. I do like how this was improved in the sequels, though. I must say that. The Warhog I actually find very fun. The platforming is creative, and the stretchy arms allow you to do a lot of fun swinging and climbing. The combat is also pretty good for beat-em-up games. There's a lot of combos, but it seems like players don't use them and decide to complain about the battles being too simple, yet they don't use the combos. I should also mention that the atmosphere in this game is grand and powerful. You feel like you're traveling around the world because the settings convey the feeling of the area so well. Sonic Unleashed is a game I will review at some point. If this entry felt badly placed, I apologize. No, seriously, I really do, because I can't condense my feelings into a mere countdown entry. Regardless, I have done enough to make it clear that Sonic Unleashed is my favorite Sonic game, and what I believe to be the best Sonic game. Phew! This countdown took a lot out of me, but it's been really fun making it. If you enjoyed, please hit the like button. If you're new, please subscribe. Alright, that's all for now. Take care everyone, this is Christoph Gavin, signing out.